things that we have to figure out is some legal considerations. Can you be sued for infecting somebody with coronavirus? Can you sue an employer who forces you to work when you think maybe you should be staying home? And I'm sure there are 100 other questions. We're joined right now by employment attorney Jonathan Bell, founder of the Bell Law Group. Good morning, Mr. Bell.
Good morning. How you doing today?
Just fine. Is this an area of the law that is pretty well defined, or is this something that has potentially has attorneys and judges scratching their heads?
I think the latter. It's not well defined. It's going to become well defined because, as you know, with any catastrophe, there's always subsequent lawsuits being filed. So I don't know if it's going to flood the courts, but I'm sure there are going to be a certain number of lawsuits, and I believe that some are going to be successful and some are not, depending upon the facts and circumstances of each claim.
Let me start with just a general question. Never mind coronavirus. Can you sue somebody for getting you sick, or for because you believe they got you sick?
Well, the only time I've ever seen that is relating to the HIV AIDS virus, when somebody acts in a grossly negligent or even an intentional way when they know they've tested positive and had some sex partners without disclosing it and not using the proper protection. So we have seen those types of cases, and some of them have been successful and others haven't been. So that's the only somewhat loosely comparison I can make to what we're about to see moving forward.
Okay, so now let's advance that just a little bit into the current situation in our crisis. Let's say hypothetically, I work at a job that requires my presence, and I work with one other person. That's it. We're the only people that come into contact with each other at work. Of course, in our private lives, who knows where I go or he goes. Now, one of us gets sick. Is there a potential for a lawsuit there?
Well, there's always a potential. Anybody could sue anybody for anything. But then let's talk about, chances of success. In that situation, I think chances of success would be minimal. Number one, did the person who was infected first know that they were infected? Because to be liable in a lawsuit, you have to be negligent. If you're walking around and you don't know that you have the virus and you're infecting other people, you can't be negligent. You can't be not expecting to walk around. So that's one concern. Another concern I have in these types of cases is going to be causation. Like the HIV/AIDS situation, you're not going to have as many sex partners as you are as far as just working with somebody, socializing with somebody. So even if you had it and then the other person gets it, doesn't necessarily mean that the other person got it from you. There could be other sources, other places. This virus, apparently a lot of people walk around asymptomatic. They don't know they have it. It could live on surfaces. There are so many different ways to get it. So the better cases are going to be those like on a cruise ship when there's people suing the cruise line right now, when people are isolated on a cruise ship and maybe the cruise ship should have taken more precautions or been more sanitary, or maybe like that individual who went on the plane on JetBlue, when he knew he was sick, he knew he had the coronavirus, he intentionally put everybody at risk. And even still, that's not a guaranteed win because someone could have got it somewhere else.
Sure.
But those are the types of lawsuits that lawyers would probably look more to in taking a chance and bringing a case like this. Because these types of lawsuits, the lawyer only gets paid if they win. So they're going to weed out and try to get cases that they have a higher probability or higher chance of success.
We're talking with Jonathan Bell, founder of the Bell Law Group. He is an employment attorney, and we're talking about employment questions surrounding coronavirus. Mr. Bell, we were telling we had a segment last hour that we called "Idiots on Parade" because this kind of thing brings out the worst in the stupid people. And we had one story of a man who has been arrested, and he's being charged with making a terror threat because he intentionally coughed on an employee at a grocery store and said he had the coronavirus. Chances are he doesn't, but what if that person, the employee, gets sick now? They must have a really good case here.
They probably do if they do get infected by the coronavirus. But again, the facts the facts matter. If he says that, he's been practicing social distancing, he hasn't really been in contact with people, he's pretty much staying at home when he needs to stay at home, he's really limiting face-to-face contact, not engaging in any touching. So it really depends on the facts and circumstances. If he says that he goes to parties, goes to friends' house, goes on dates, whatever it might be, it's just going to lessen the causation theory that I was discussing before. Anybody could act negligently or intentionally, but you have to prove that action actually caused the damages. If you can't prove that causation element, then in that situation, there's no case. Now, he could still be charged criminally. The person who did it could charge criminally for this misconduct. And who knows how far that case is going to go. Arrests are made all the time. But, his ability to, the person who allegedly is going to get the coronavirus, his ability to collect, it might come into question, even with that criminal case pending.
All right. And then there's the case of, and I know there are a lot of these people out there right now who have been told they've got to work. We need to keep operating within the limits of the guidelines and restrictions that we've been given and imposed. You have to come to work. And I'm going, but I'm worried. It worries me. I'm old. I'm at risk for some reason. I want to stay home. And they said, no, we need you. And then if I get sick, do I have a right to sue the employer?
So that's a great question. I'm getting that question fairly often. So what I believe is going to happen, because I'm understanding this is relatively new, is that just like every other injury that happens at work, you're going to be limited to workers' compensation. Okay, so there is an avenue for some type of collection and remedy, but it's not going to be in a direct lawsuit. It's going to be going through a workers' compensation insurance company. Now, workers' compensation might then go ahead and deny the claim for the same reasons. They're saying, hey, listen, yeah, you went to work. Yes, they forced you to go to work, but how could you prove that you got sick at work as opposed to sick anywhere else? So that's going to be the thing is, this thing is so contagious that it's almost impossible to know with any type of certainty where it came from. Like a typical case, a motor vehicle accident, you know that the broken leg came from the car that hit you. In this situation, you can get it from anywhere. It's taking a shot in the dark. So theoretically, yes, you could file a workers' comp claim if you feel like your employer acted grossly negligent. For example, someone knows that another employee has coronavirus and you're making that person work with them very closely, not social distancing, not sending that individual home. I mean, there could be, unfortunately, with the law, there's an exception to every rule, right? But generally, if you do file a claim for workers against your employer, it's going to be through a workers' compensation setting.
All right. Very interesting. Thank you so much for the information, John. Thanks
a lot for having me on, and be safe.
All right. Thank you. You too, sir. That's Jonathan Bell, founder of the Bell Law Group.